What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Yota Xpedition. We have our 3rd gen Tacoma here in the shop, and we're going to be installing a Safari Snorkel from ARB, so we're going to show you how to get it done today. So obviously, one main reason you would want to get a snorkel is so that you don't suck up water into your intake. Your intake is grabbing air from inside your fender liner, so if you're going through some deeper water and slinging water up into your fender liner, there's a good chance that you could suck up some water. With a snorkel, you're going to be grabbing air from up here, which is very unlikely for you to get water, and it's also good for if you are following someone on a dusty road. The air up here is going to be a little bit cleaner than the air down here in your wheel well. So before we go ahead and start cutting up this fender, let's take a look at everything included in this kit to get the job done. Obviously, you have the snorkel and you have the scoop itself. Right here we have the coupler that's going to be connecting the snorkel to your AIRBOX. This is going to work with your factory one. It's going to work with a TRD intake, also an air raid. I don't know of every single AIRBOX that this is going to work with, so do some research before you add a snorkel to your intake. Next thing, you obviously get the template so that you know where to drill holes. So we're going to get that laid out here on the fender. We're going to mark all of our holes before we start cutting and drilling. Then you also have a small bracket here. This is going to be connecting the snorkel to your A-pillar right here, so you have a little bit of support on this upper section of the snorkel. Lastly, we just have a bag full of hardware. You have the studs and washers to get everything mounted. We also have the clamps here to mount the coupler to the snorkel and to your AIRBOX. One of the things that ARB includes with the kit is these small plastic inserts. These are meant to go in your A-pillar, but there's one problem. I have used these in the past, and they want you to put a square object into a round hole, and it doesn't fit very well. So instead of using these, we're going to be doing some riv nuts, and that's going to hold a lot better than these. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to rip out the factory intake. We're going to get the template laid out here, and then we can start cutting this fender up, drilling holes, and get this thing installed. All right, so the first thing we're going to do for this install is remove the factory AIRBOX. So that should be fairly easy. Let's go ahead and get that done. So we got this engine cover here. We're just going to pop that up and pull that off. If you want to disconnect your battery, you can. I mean, we are going to be unplugging the MAF, but it's really not necessary. So let's go ahead and get that unplugged, and we'll get the little clamps disconnected that are holding the wires to the AIRBOX itself. Disconnect that. And we have this hose here for our PCV valve. Go ahead and pop that off. And then we have a 10 millimeter here on this clamp to our throttle body. Go ahead and loosen that. Now we can just unclip our AIRBOX, and we can pull that up, pull that off the throttle body. We still have a clip holding the harness on for the MAF sensor, so we'll go ahead and take that off. There we go. Let's get this out of our way. So now we can pull out the air filter. Perfect time to replace this if you want to. You can get a drop-in filter that is definitely a lot better quality from K&N. We have this on the website if you would like to grab one. So with the air filter out of our way, now we have a couple bolts holding the bottom portion of the box into the fender well. Here we have 1, 2, 3 12 millimeter bolts. We'll go ahead and take those out and remove the lower section of the box. So with the factory intake removed, the next thing we need to do is work on the fender liner. We're going to take some stuff out under here so we can move that out of our way. We need to get our hand up behind there so when we're installing the snorkel, we can get all the washers and nuts onto the studs. All right, so you're going to have a bunch of these black push clips. You can get some of them from in here now that you removed the AIRBOX. We're going to go ahead and push the clips on that and push them through. We're going to have to get as many of those removed as we can so that we can get the under the fender liner here to come out. So we got 3, 4 of those clips out through the engine bay, and now we have a couple of 10 millimeter bolts here that is connecting the fender FLAIR to the inner fender. We're going to go ahead and take those bolts out. And then up here under the front of the bumper, we have two 10mm bolts. We'll take those out also. Hopefully that'll be enough to give us some movement here on this fender liner to get our arm underneath it. So those three 10mm bolts that you would have taken out for the fender flare, they also have those black plastic clips in there as well. So you're gonna have to try and reach up and back behind and depress those clips and get them out. That way you don't have to destroy them in order to remove them. This is a little difficult and it's gonna take a little bit of patience to get these clips out, or you can just rip them out and replace them if you want. We did end up having to break one of those clips because I couldn't get it removed. I'm gonna put a link in the description. You can get these on Amazon, so if you do break any and you have to replace them, you can get them down below. All right, so we have all of the clips and bolts removed. So now we're gonna go ahead, take the template, we're gonna get that laid onto our fender, and then we can start marking all of our holes and start cutting and drilling. So we're gonna take our template, this big piece here, we don't need this, so we can go ahead and pull this out. And now we need to line up this edge right here to the very top of our fender, and then this edge over here to the side of our fender, and we'll get everything taped in place. So we have the template on there. Now we're going to take our Sharpie and we are going to make our marks for all of our holes. Push the template nice and flat against the body before you make your mark. And then this one here, we'll just draw right on there. So now that everything is marked out, we don't need the template there anymore. We'll go ahead and get that out of our way. With all of our holes marked out, the next thing we're gonna do is take a center punch and a hammer, and we're gonna get all of them punched out so we have a nice starting point. I'm gonna hit all of them with a center drill, and then we are gonna work our way up to a 1/2 inch drill. ARB calls for 5/8 drill, but I think that's way too big because the studs that we're putting in are only about 1/4 inch, and that's way too much room. They want to give you some wiggle room so you can get everything lined up, but we're going to be going up to a 1/2 inch. So we're going to start with an 1/8 inch, pilot drill all of them, go up to a 3/8, and then finish it off with the 1/2 inch, and that should be plenty. So now that we dented the fender 6 times, we're going to go ahead now and take the center drill, and we're going to get a nice starting hole for all of them. Also, if you have a step bit, you can use that as well instead of just using different size drill bits to work your way up. So we got those 6 holes drilled out to a 1/2 inch. Now we're ready to cut out the big opening for the snorkel, and we are going to be using this body saw here. Some other snorkels you can use a hole saw, but because this one is oval, we're not going to be using a hole saw bit. We're going to be using one of these. You can use a Dremel, you can use a jigsaw with a metal blade on it. If you want to pick one of these up, you can grab it from Harbor Freight for like 25 bucks, and it definitely comes in handy for a lot of different things. So we're going to go ahead and pop ourselves a pilot hole so that we can get the blade in there, and then we're going to go ahead and get that cut out. I'm going to run tape around this outside edge because I know when I take my body saw and I run it around here, I'm probably going to scratch the paint around the hole from it vibrating. So I'm just gonna run some tape here around the outside. Brand new blade, we're ready to roll. All right, so we have our pilot hole, and now we're ready to start cutting this out. All right, so we got the big hole all cut out and we have it all deburred. So we're gonna go ahead and take some paint and a small little brush or a Q-tip, and we're just going to cover up those exposed metal on all those holes so we don't have to worry about rust. So we'll go ahead and do that. So while the paint is drying there, we're gonna prep the snorkel. We're going to take the studs and we're gonna put those in the back. We're gonna put some blue Loctite on those and get them threaded in. Next step, after getting all of the studs threaded into the back, we're gonna take the bracket that mounts to the A-pillar and we are going to get that bolted onto the snorkel. We need to do a test fit and mark out on the A-pillar where we need to make our marks for the 3 mounting holes here for this. So we're gonna take the 2 bolts that they give you. We'll just get this threaded in and then we can do a test fit and make some marks. So now we're gonna take the snorkel and we're gonna do a test fit here. We're gonna get it in the holes, just like so. So we're gonna put some tape on the A-pillar so when we make our marks, we're not gonna be using a Sharpie on the paint. So I have inward pressure here on the snorkel, holding it in place. I'm going to mark both sides of our bracket. Now we can pull this back off. So there's where our bracket is going to sit. So now we can take this back off and we can set this back in place. And now we can mark our 3 holes there on the pillar and drill those out. Now we'll take our center punch, we'll mark these holes. So we only have 2 M5 riv nuts here left in the shop, so we're gonna be doing the 2 outer ones. That'll be plenty to hold this in place. We're gonna let the middle one go for now. $270. So we got our riv nut tool out here, got our M5 riv nut on there, and we're gonna put some black silicone on that before we install it. And if we want, we could put some silicone on the screws as well. That way we don't have to really worry about water getting inside the pillar. That's more than enough. Go ahead and put our riv nut down in there. Crimp that, tighten it up a little bit more. That should be good. There we go, nice threaded hole. Second riv nut. bit. There we go. And just wipe off the extra silicone. So now we can take our bracket. We have our 2 M5 button head screws in there. We have to watch what we use because we only have so much room here to clear. So you can see there's some dimples there in the molding. So we have our button head screws. We're going to put a little bit of silicone on these threads to seal that up. And we'll get this mounted to the A-pillar. All right, bracket is nice and tight on there. It's not going anywhere. So we have the bracket on the A-pillar all finished up, and we're almost ready to get the snorkel in place, but we're going to put the AIRBOX back in first with the new coupler on it. We have a couple of different modifications that we need to make to that in order to get the coupler to fit right. So let's go ahead and do those, get the AIRBOX back in, get the coupler on, and then we can finish it off with the snorkel itself. All right, so we have the bottom portion of our AIRBOX, and we have this piece here, which is what was inside our fender well and where we sucked air in from. We have to pull this off, so there's just 2 tabs. We'll just simply go ahead and take a screwdriver and pop that off. And now if you take a closer look at this, you can see we have these pieces here, these 3. We also have this right here, and this one here. We're gonna go ahead and shave all those down so that it's nice and smooth. All right, so we have all of that shaved down on the AIRBOX. Now we're gonna take the coupler and we're going to put that into our inner fender. You can see we have this spot right here, and that's where that hole is gonna sit that is on the inside of your engine bay. So let's go ahead and get that installed. All right, so we muscled the coupler through the hole here. Don't forget to put your clamp on. And now we can take the bottom of our AIRBOX. We'll get that shoved in there, get our holes lined up, get that bolted back down, get that tightened, and then we can get the snorkel connected to this side. So we'll put the other clamp on the other end of the coupler. I didn't tighten this end of the coupler yet because I need to make sure that I can swivel this back and forth to get it to line up perfectly with the snorkel. Once we have both of them on, then we'll tighten them. So I have the coupler kind of positioned where I need it to be, and we have the snorkel. So the next step is to get this end in that coupler and get all of our holes lined up. So we'll go ahead and wrestle this around and get everything in place. I think we're on. That wasn't bad. So we got the coupler connected on both sides. Before we go and tighten those clamps up, we're gonna get the snorkel exactly in place where it needs to be. So we're gonna get those bolts started for the bracket up here, and then I'm gonna put the washers and the nuts on for all of those studs on the back as well. And then last step, we'll tighten up those clamps. Okay, now we got those tightened down. We'll take our washers and our nuts and we'll get all of those started here. So this is where taking off that fender liner comes into play. So now we can reach up from inside and we can get all of those started. Now we'll take either a wrench or a socket and ratchet and we'll get all of those tightened down. All right, all 6 of the studs are tight. That thing ain't going nowhere. So we have a 7mm nut driver. We're gonna tighten down that clamp here on the back side of the snorkel. If you want, you could put silicone on that too before you shove the snorkel into the coupler if you want some extra security. That is not going to leak. But we have that tightened down. Now I'll go ahead and pop the hood. I'll get that other clamp on the coupler end on here. We'll get that tightened down as well. All right. So that's pretty much finished. Now we can just go ahead and reinstall the rest of our intake. Make sure we plug our MAF in. Make sure we get that PCV valve hooked back up. And we just need to do a little bit adjusting here, get this nice and straight and retighten that. And we're finished. All right guys, that's gonna wrap up the install for the Safari Snorkel here from ARB on the 3rd Gen Tacoma. If you guys have any questions about how to do this, you can ask me down below in the comments. And if you guys wanna pick one of these snorkels up for your Tacoma, you can grab it from YotaXpedition.com. Click the link in the description. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys in the next one.